Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
How the fuck did you folks find us? I figure with net neutrality going the way of the dodo, we're going to be pushed aside. You've heard of the dark interwebs. We're going to be like in the netherwebs. It'll be so tough to find us unless we decide to fork over some money. This here national treasure could be in trouble here, Cory.
And we are a national treasure.
We might have to start charging people in order to find us. Kind of like the way FaceStab does it, you only 10% of the people see any single post you have. And I haven't even looked lately. Let's see on our Facebook page how many fans follow us via our ever-loving Facebook page.
Somewhere around 360, I think.
So that means every time you post it, maybe 30 people see it.
Well, that's not true because I can look and see how many people got to see it.
But it's only 10% because they want to come back and say, Crazy Comics and Story Podcast, if you paid us $10 whole, we'd make sure every 360 of you see it. And your poor website, ever hosted by our host, Dream Host, it's going to be gone. Totally gone. It'll be in such a minute corner of the interwebs. Our kids will maybe find it. And by then, who knows? It's over, baby. Game over. Why are we bothering, Cory? Why are we bothering? What is there left that we could possibly do?
We could talk comic books.
Oh, hey, that's a good idea.
We could we could dance if you want to.
That means I'd have to put on pants.
You can leave your friends behind.
I don't want to see your behind.
Because your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, well, they're no friends of mine.
Well, that's not even much of a stretch. You have no friends.
I have plenty of friends.
You do not. You have potential cleaning people.
No, people I potentially will clean their place. Let me see how many friends I have according to the internet. I have 3,612 friends.
Which means every time you post, only 300 see it.
That's 300 people.
Unless, what if it's the 300 people that don't really give a rat's ass?
Well, I will say this, Joe. We have 1,000 downloads of this here podcast every week. And that's not counting the old podcasts that people download. And I guarantee, I promise to my listeners, that I will never set up one of those things where we beg for money.
Nope.
Because it's tacky. It's just tacky.
Tacky. No Patreons for us.
Nope. This podcast is free because I looked into it and they said, well, what you need to do, you need to have stuff that only the people who give you money can get to. And I could understand that if we were like recording songs, yes, or putting out books, or
dancing and leaving our friends behind.
But no. All we do is this here podcast and all the other podcasts and a whole bunch of other podcasts. But no, I will not be asking people, hey, if you give me this much money, we'll record an extra podcast. Because if I have time to record an extra podcast, I'm doing it for the listeners.
Yes.
And we do it the old-fashioned way.
We beg for them.
No! We do it the old-fashioned way. We have advertisers.
Oh, yeah, and they'll be leaving us too because, why advertise for a podcast? Nobody can find. It's up to you, folks. We need your helps. Spread the word far and wide. Every time Cory puts a little post there on the YouTubes or on the FaceStabs or even however you find out about us, just share it with your friends. That's all we ask.
Tell your friends, and, if you don't like the podcast, and if you don't like it, why are you listening? But if you don't like the podcast, tell your enemies, because it's a real fun, shitty trick to do.
Make them look behind.
Yeah.
And more importantly, if you've got a book or a comic or something you want us to review, send it to us.
Yeah, because we review.
We does. Not often, but we will.
Well, we're going to be reviewing more often because I'm having a little more spare time. It's no longer open enrollment and NaNoWriMo at the same time. I don't know why I do that to myself every year, Joe. Why do I do that?
I was going to ask, what is in it for you? If you're not doing it for money, I mean, I look at you. I got here my personal, well, it wasn't personalized, but an autographed copy of Worldwide News by Cory Strode. That's 2 exclamation points. If you get a guy with 1 or 3 or none, it's a fraud. And a Daniel Stitch Moore, who I know as Dangerous Dan Moore. And this is their first book, and it's a lot of fun. And if you don't have yourselves a copy, you should go to worldwidenews.solitairerose.com and not only catch up on current strips, but also pick yourself up a copy of this. I think, doesn't Dan have some?
Why, yes, Dan will have them at all sorts of events, and you can actually buy them from him at lordshadowflame@gmail.com.
Or you could bribe me, because I got myself some copies I'm itching to give away.
Yeah, there you go.
But the question is where's the payoff for you when you do things like Worldwide News or the podcast or NaNoWriMo? I mean, you're a creative guy. You've got a lot of creative juices in you that I hesitate to think if you didn't have these outlets, you might implode. But what's the payoff for you?
I do it for love.
But you're not getting any. So what's the real payoff?
Well, for the podcast, it was, if you remember our origin story.
Ooh, I love origin stories.
I was bitten by a radioactive microphone.
Yep. What?
No. It's because you and I weren't able to hang out as much as we used to, so we figured this would be a cool way to just kind of hang out. And then then we started taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And now we're a beloved national institution.
For now. And
the other stuff, it just basically I'm trying to build up an audience so that when the first novels start to come out from Novelcast, it looks like it'll be next year because I have a plan in place. I'm even buying ISBN numbers, Joe.
Ooh. Slap one of them on your foreheads, and then you'll be able to date a librarian.
Because I recently got a newsletter from our pals at Uncle Hugo and Uncle Edgar's, and he spent quite a few paragraphs saying that if you don't have ISBN numbers on your self-published books, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be wasting my time. But part of it is that. Part of it is that I grew up wanting to do radio.
We all want to do some radio.
And then when I met people who worked in radio, they were like, oh, for the love of all that's holy, don't do radio.
I was explaining that to my daughter when I did my college years.
Hello?
Oh, that's my wife. Well, you go on with your story. I'm going to talk to her for a bit.
Okay, I wanted to get into radio, and every radio person I talked to said, no, don't. And I remember when I was in college, I actually, at the local radio station, they would have me come in on Fridays. And it was supposed to be where I would review movies, because I was reviewing movies for the local college paper. And I'd become semi-popular enough that they gave me a column, and they had me write features. And I don't think I've ever shared this. One of my columns actually won the best something for college newspapers in my senior year. But they had me on, and they had me reviewing movies, and it quickly went from, me coming in and going, oh, here are the movies in town, to about 15 to 20 minutes of myself and the disc jockey just talking about movies and what was going on in the city and things like that. And I really enjoyed it. And now that there's podcasts, I could do that with Joe. And then I can interview people and do it with them. And then Dan and I can, over on Bad Advice, we could do it together. And you people need to send us some questions, damn it. You need help. You all need help. I don't need help anymore. Yeah, I don't need help anymore because I have medication. But
I brought that up because I was talking with my daughter Holly, and she's going through the I don't know what I'm going to do with my life phase. And
tell her I still don't know what I'm doing with my life.
She's 18 and she's taking college classes, even though she's still technically in high school. And I was telling her, I said the big thing is just try different stuff. She's not at a big college, so she, hopefully she can get into some stuff. But I said, that's why I went into the radio. It was kind of the same thing. Everybody was like, ooh, radio fun. And, this is long before, there's one or two clearinghouses that pipe stuff out to everybody. Back when DJs were actually personalities. And I got into it, and I was able to host my own show. I did the news for a while. I worked in the sales department. I did a regular DJ shift, and then I clombed onto the morning show and did that for a year. And I got to the point where I was like, I really don't want to do this. So it was something to try, and I had fun with it. And we actually did decent numbers, I guess, for a know-nothing college show, but. It was just something to try. If you don't know, go out and try.
But, that's one of the things. I have all sorts of ideas, and I get to play with them all on podcasts and in writing and in other things. And I'm even learning some stuff that may actually show up on the old Facebook page next year. And friend of mine is putting together a movie script that we're all sort of cobbling together, and it's starting to look very fun and very weird, and I don't know if we'll ever do it, but let's remember that Worldwide News actually came out of a TV pitch that got passed on. So, yeah, I just like doing stuff, Joe.
Well, cool.
Although I learned this weekend I don't want a dog.
He does not want a dog. Why?
Somebody asked me, hey, Cory, I know you had a cat. Would you want a dog? And I said, well, let me put it this way. If I wanted something that made a lot of noise, pooped all the time, and peed on me, I'd just work another shift at the group home. Thank you. You've been a beautiful crowd. I spent
the crickets.
I spent 45 minutes on my Sunday mopping up feces.
Well, you are the cleaner.
So we got that. Joe, by the way, I do want to point out that all of these men who are getting busted for harassment, one of the things that's coming out about all of them is that they're in their office without any pants.
Yes.
So you better be careful.
I am in my home without any pants.
But is it your office?
It's actually Dana's room unless she never comes back home.
Now, will your wife get after you about sexual harassment?
No, I wear pants around her because I get tired of the giggling.
And you don't harass her?
Well, I try. I mean, if one woman in all existence I want to be harassed by, and she is just not interested.
That should tell you something.
I should become a cleaner.
Nope. There's only one cleaner.
Oh, maybe I'll be the cleanette. I don't know. We'll figure something out.
You'll figure something out. I am the cleaner.
No. So then I'll be the messier.
There.
Here, I'll start now.
Sounds like you're getting a haircut.
Clean that up. I feel guilty now. I should have recycled that. Oh, well.
Joe, I sent you a book to read.
No, someone sent you a book to read that you tried to send to me and boffed it. It disappeared on the interwebs.
I've sent it to you 3 times.
I got it once.
And did you read it?
Well, you didn't even ask if I got that thing I sent you.
I didn't get anything you sent me.
I know. You just got me blocked.
No. There's only one person I've blocked.
What?
Huh? What?
Damn earwax buildup.
So,
I must give out a warning. The story we're about to cover is a fully realized story with a plot, themes, and fully developed characters. It contains sex, violence, symbolism, moral and ethical struggle, complex adult relationships, satire, and genuine creativity. This is not a safe space book. Enjoy!
And that is from 01 Publishing. Their new book, Casefile Arkham, the second book. It's a second Casefile Arkham, Her Blood Runs Cold. And written by Josh Finney and drawn by Patrick McAvoy, both friends of the show, but that does not mean they get a free ride.
Nope.
I will, when I review a book, I tell people whether it's worth buying or not.
That is true. We are merciless.
That's right. So, Joe, did you read the book?
I did.
And your impression?
I enjoyed the ever-loving snot out of it. It's in black and white. It does a couple of things you've heard me say over and over in reviews. The art is very nice, very pretty. The background arts, whether it's a car or a creepy-ass mansion, are very good. The characters' faces are very unique. I don't have to constantly go back and figure out, okay, who the hell is this? Because I do not recognize them. It's 6 chapters, so I don't know if it was originally a comic book or if they just did this straight out as a graphic novel.
It was done straight out as a graphic novel.
And it reads a lot, I kind of like a crime noir type mystery where you're not quite sure what's going on. There's the classical gumshoe detective out taking clients, trying to solve a case, and it starts with a prologue where we get introduced to a very beautiful lady. And of course,
lady.
The last panel of the prologue, some guy blows his head off. And then chapter 1, where we start with the gumshoe. It's told kind of like a first-person account, and it kind of starts at the beginning. Now, you said this is the second book. Is this a second of this character, do you know, or is just a second from the...
Second of this character. We reviewed the first one last year.
Oh, wow. I got to go dig that up, because I don't remember the first one, which is probably more my problem than theirs, but I left reading this wanting more, and now that I know I've got more, I can go dig it out. I can almost see this as a film, the way they have it laid out. And it does take some interesting turns, as I said, as he's trying to... I don't want to talk and give too much away, but, there's an old friend, there's murder, he's got a very shapely girlfriend, and it's almost like 1950s X-Files, if you want to say it, because it does kind of delve into, like I said, the spiritual, supernatural, mystical type realms, and it really kept me reading. Usually when I start reading books like this, if I haven't conked out by chapter 2, I will definitely finish this. And this one, I just kept going and kept going. It was a lot of fun. It was very intriguing as characters kept going on. Whether or not you buy it or not, I mean, you got to take it with an X-Files type grain of salt, because it's kind of, if a gumshoe runs across X-Files, almost like Night Stalker in a way, if you want to, go into the 70s. There were a couple times towards the end where I got a little mixed up. I wasn't quite sure what happened, but I think part of that was because I was reading so fast, I skipped over something that I probably shouldn't have, but I went back and reread it. It does not end... Well, I don't know if there'd be it's if you ever watched Bogey play in Maltese Falcon, it doesn't end the way you think it's going to be, but it's definitely an ending. And like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm thrilled to find out that there's another graphic novel we can pick up, and I got to see if I still have that laying in my file somewhere, because I'd probably reread it when we're off the air tonight. So I enjoyed it. What did you think, Mr. Strode?
Well, I was part of the Kickstarter in that I interviewed them when they started work on it, and I contributed to the Kickstarter. That's how we got the PDF. The book itself is actually being sent out this week. I believe they start hitting the mail on Wednesday, and they'll soon be available on Amazon. I really loved the first one. I loved the art and have more to say other than it had a lot of lines. But
well, thank God it did.
I thought there were a number of things I really liked about the art style. And the first is that the art style mixed up sort of how the story was told. In the prologue that you talked about, the art just seemed a little more scratchy, a little more edgy, a little rougher around the edges, which worked for that part of the story. And then as we got into the regular detective portions in chapters 1 and 2, the art smoothed out, became more
realistic, I would think.
More realistic, more photo-type background, more of a smooth style to it. But I like the fact that the art varied, not in that, oh, this page was drawn by someone different, but the actual style of the art changed with the mood of the story. And then the other thing that I really enjoyed about the art is one of the criticisms that I and a lot of people have about Brian Michael Bendis' stuff, in that Bendis has a lot of talking heads. And because he's full script, he actually will kind of direct the artist to do the same, basically it's the same shot over and over and over. And one of the things that I really liked about this, the scenes with talking heads, the camera moved. So it would be closer, it would be further away, it would be from a different angle. It varied things up so that it felt like, even though these are just two people sitting and talking, it felt like it was motion. It felt like the story was moving somewhere. And I think that's really important, and a lot of artists don't seem to get that anymore. One of the things that Wally Wood has the 22 panels that always work. And one of the things about it is this is for the parts of the story where there's no action, where it's just people talking. These are the panels that can get you through. And while this didn't copy those panels, it used that same idea of don't have everything be static. Change up where the camera is. Change up the point of view. Move closer when it's more intense. Move further away when you want to distance the reader. The story was a lot like the first one in that it starts as a mystery, but as time goes on, more and more of the Cthulhu mythos starts to bubble up into the story. And characters react the way they would if these sorts of horrific things were starting to happen. One of the problems I have with horror movies is that people either don't react much at all or they way overreact, when a lot of what I think I would react to is confusion. Like, the hell is that? What the hell's going on? And because the character's a detective, he's putting together the pieces of what's going on, bringing the reader along so that if you're not steeped in the Cthulhu stuff, you just know weird stuff's going on, and you learn as the main character learns. It has all of the stereotypes of a noir story, which, when you're going to combine genres, you really need to do. You can't put too much into a book. If you're going to combine genres, you can't do a lot of subversion at the same time. You have to have the character with the detective backstory. You can't mess with it a lot. It's like when Joe Lansdale does his horror westerns. His characters don't stray too far from what you expect in a western, because then the fact that they're putting horror into it doesn't fit as well. It's almost like you can't change too much, or the reader has trouble connecting. You have to have the touch points that the reader can grab onto. I was very excited when this was announced because I liked the first one. This one is just as good, although the art to me worked better because of that varying of how it's drawn to sort of subtly give a mood. And on the buy, borrow, or ignore, this is a buy. The hardcover is coming out really soon, and that'll be available through Amazon. 01 Publishing, the stuff they do, I've always enjoyed. And the editor, Kat, is really good at picking out good stories for the company to publish. So, Joe, what's your verdict?
I would definitely buy.
Well, there you go. Did you read any other comics in the past week or so? Because I thought, it's kind of a slow news week. We haven't got our previews yet because
No.
with the new address for DCB service, they don't seem to be shipping stuff out as fast as they used to. And
2 days to box day.
This was my weekend to work, so I really didn't have a lot of spare time. But I got some reading done, and I thought we could talk about books we're reading.
All right. Well, I've been reading Judge Anderson, Year One by Alec Worley. This is a compilation of 3 different stories, and I think I raved about one of them earlier, and I just finished up the book. And it's a lot of fun if you're familiar with the Judge Dredd, Judge Anderson megaverse, and it's interesting because you spend a lot of time. This is again, it's year 1, so this is before Judge Anderson has proven herself. It's a lot of people doubting that the Psi cops are even worthwhile. Whether or not the Psi division is going to hold its own weight. The stories they have, one's a love-obsessed telepathic killer at a Valentine's Day parade. Another one goes into the depths of madness in a huge new psychiatric prison. The third one, basically, she hunts a psychic virus to its roots. And there's an extra story and an introduction from the author. Most of these stories have appeared elsewhere, but it's nice to have it all together in a single book. This is published through www.abadonbooks.com. Edition available. And it looks like it runs about $10, but I think it was a pretty good $10. Definitely worth picking up. One thing I always find interesting... I'm sorry, what?
Who is the artist on it?
There isn't an artist. This is a book.
Oh, okay.
A real book.
A novel.
Yep, book. And what's interesting, too, is something that a book can do that pictures usually don't when you're dealing with, in a case of like Judge Anderson, where she's just beaten to the core, attacked psychically. You can feel her as she's being attacked physically, and she's struggling to get that, the job done, to get the perp, to get away from what's happening. I mean, you read through it and you almost feel with her the way she's just struggling for it. And, ultimately it's just, she's a judge. There's a reason why she was chosen as a judge, and, she, one way or another, gets the job done. And I hope I didn't spoil too much, but it's smart, fast moving, and it's science fiction. It's got a pulpy thrill, and it's definitely something I would recommend people check out. Judge Anderson, Year One. Even if you're not familiar with the whole Judge Dredd universe, this might be a good place to just jump on, because they do a good job of setting up how the mega city feels and runs.
One of the books I read the second volume of Jessica Jones, which is the new series by Bendis and Michael Gaydos, featuring their character from Alias, Jessica Jones. The first was about Jessica Jones being put into jail. And I'm not going to give away any of the secrets of it, but the second is she has been hired by Maria Hill. And Maria Hill was the former head of S.H.I.E.L.D., who's now kind of on the outs with S.H.I.E.L.D. And it shows one of the things that I don't think Bendis gets enough credit for. This is a really good spy story, not in a James Bond sort of thing, more in the John le Carre of what happens when a spy screws up. And I also like that Michael Gaydos draws people who look like people. Even if they are superheroes, they aren't the idealized bodies. Luke Cage just looks like a big guy who lifts weights, rather than you can make out all 3 of the muscles on his shoulder sort of thing. And the other thing about this book that I like is something that Bendis is very good at when he's just doing a single character, and that is he's able to pull stories out of a character's flaws. This entire story is pulled out of Maria Hill not being a very good person and kind of being in over her head.
Not being pleasant?
No, more she was in over her head as the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., but didn't want to admit it because, hey, I've been promoted to the best job I could have. I'm not going to exactly say that I failed at it. One of the drawbacks was that one of the more interesting plot lines from the first book, the man who killed his wife because he was from a different universe, that was just dropped. It wasn't mentioned in any way, shape, or form. And to me, if I was involved in something like that, that would be the next thing I would be investigating rather than, oh, well, it's on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, and folks, that's what happens when you have a power surge in the middle of your podcast.
Oh, that's what happened.
I'm sitting here, and it's like everything starts blinking, and all of a sudden, the internet just turned off.
Oh, I thought it was because you mentioned Doctor Strange, and he didn't want it to be mentioned.
It could be. Maybe that was it. But no, I was saying is that why Doctor Strange never got around to curing the man thing?
Is that why there was
never got around to helping the black? I can't even think of the guy who was stoned for all those years in Defenders.
Oh, the Black Knight.
Black Knight never helped.
I think it's one of those things where the writer said, "Oh, I'll get to that," and then he was replaced. But Jessica Jones' second book, you don't need the first one. It picks up from a good starting point, and if you like Bendis' stuff, his more solo stuff like Alias and Pulse and Daredevil, I recommend this book. To me, it's a buy. Joe, what's your next book?
I sat down and read me the 2 volumes of Mystery in Space with Captain Comet. And in case you didn't know, Captain Comet at the time was dead.
Dead? I didn't even know he was sick.
Yeah, they start out. It's interesting because it's kind of a two-pronged story, and eventually it all comes together because it also includes a character called the Weird. That what year was that one done?
88.
It was like way back. Yeah, 88 by Starlin and comic horror legend Bernie Wrightson. Weird miniseries itself was just, I guess the word would be weird. It just came out of nowhere. It was 4 issues. It stood alone. It was an awesome creative team. And at the end of it, the Weird died. And so you start out with Mystery in Space. And this one's done by Jim Starlin, Shane Davis, Matt Banning, and Al Milgram. And it starts with, Captain Comet's dead. And we kind of get a brief synopsis. Well, he's not really dead. I mean, he starts out on page 1 alive. But then they go back and they kind of cover by a very attractive telepath named I and his dog Tyrone, kind of cover the events up to his death. And they even talk about things where, how Captain Comet was busy fighting something called the Secret Society of Villains that he wasn't too fond of. And eventually it gets into the story that, something happened. Captain Comet, now just calling himself Comet, is alive again. And he has no idea why. Well, when you get into the second story, somehow Captain Comet intersected with the Weird, and now they're both alive. And from there, they're going through Hardcore Station. Again, if you've never read Hardcore Station, another series Starlin did, you don't need to because you get an idea how it's going. And from there, the 2 characters have their independent adventures, and eventually the storylines merge together for the finale. And I've talked in the past, I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th podcast. Jim Starlin writes cosmic stories out in outer space, I mean, I would just give the guy a boatload of money and say, go for it. I don't care if it's Marvel, DC, or bring back his own Dreadstar. This Mystery into Space was fantastic. It's 2 volumes to get the whole story, originally an 8-issue miniseries. The art's fantastic. It's easy to follow the story. There are unanswered questions by the time you get end of it. I have no idea if the New 52, if these events are still considered canon or if not. They could be because again, I'm not reading a lot of current DC. But this one is a lot of fun. And then also, as a bonus, you are given the full 1988, the Weird series after the main event. So you can actually read both. It's kind of interesting to look at the way the story pans out with the original Weird, and then, of course, as he does the Mystery into Space. And by Gumby, I would not mind a little bit more. Hopefully, Jim's up to writing some cosmic stuff. If not, folks out there, you're leaving some money on the table here. You got this guy just sitting around. Let's get cracking here.
By the way, Joe,
into space.
The station in that miniseries, Hardcore Station?
Yeah.
Starlin owns it.
Oh, does he?
And he's already written 2 novels based on Hardcore Station.
Written or published?
Published. Written, published, available out on the Amazons.
All right. Well, while I'm going to go check that out while what was the next thing you read?
The next thing I want to review is a comic that interested me when I first read the solicitation, and it's called Chasing Hitler from Red 5 Comics. And the premise of the story is that we're at the end of World War we all think that Hitler died in the bunker, but in actuality he had a plan to escape from the bunker. And the first issue shows his escape, and then a couple of people from Germany, a couple of British soldiers, a British soldier and an American soldier, discover that he has escaped first, and they're going to be chasing Hitler in the other 3 issues. For what it was a nice setup issue. It introduced the characters, it introduced the premise. The art was rough. I don't want to say that it looked like early indie stuff from the 80s. It was a little rough, it needed a little more polish. The color in a lot of places was a little too garish and jumped off the page too much. So it really felt like this was the team's first work. However, I thought the story was a decent start, and I'm interested to see where it goes. It is just the first issue, so I'm willing to forgive some of the flaws if they're able to do really well and then nail the landing. And I was actually listening to a podcast from a bunch of writers, and one of them said, how good your ending is determines how people like the story. And he gave an experiment that I'm going to try. Joe, when you think of the movie, now I can't think of the name of it. They show it every Christmas.
Oh, I think of that one too.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It is?
When you think of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, what do you think of?
Why didn't they skin the banker?
But one of the things that the writer mentioned was, if you watch It's a Wonderful Life, the first 7/8 of the movie is one of the most depressing movies ever made. Everyone's life falls apart. The lead character's life is ruined. He hates everyone. He's mad at his family. He wishes he were dead. But the ending of the movie where all of the neighbors come together to save him, that's what everybody remembers. They don't remember all the depressing stuff that leads up to it. And another way I could explain that, Joe, you've seen the movie Psycho, right?
Actually, I have not.
Okay, you've heard of it. What's the plot of Psycho?
Somebody goes nuts and kills Vivian Lee in a shower.
And that happens 2/3 of the way through the movie. The first 2/3 of the movie is about Vivian Leigh embezzling a bunch of money from her employer and trying to sneak away.
So she had it coming. She had it coming.
So, Chasing Hitler #1 is a good starting point. I'm going to keep reading it to see if they're able to spike the landing, because it's one of those things where how many stories have there been where Hitler got away? It's going to be, what did they do with this that's different? But I'm willing to give it a chance. I hope the art, one of the things when an artist starts in comics, their early stuff is going to be pretty crude as they learn their skills. So I think that hopefully I'm seeing improvements in the art as the story went on. So I'm hoping...
More importantly, you should buy these issues and hold them safe so that when said artist becomes rich and famous, you can bring them out and torment them.
Yes.
I've done that with our old pal Dan Wiesemeyer, whose now artwork graces the Lego, not only the video games, but some of the books. He had one published in September. Well, ask him about K-Mon, the Cub Foods comic book. Our good buddy Pete Krause, who just finished up a run with Mark Waid at Boom Studios, or was it IDW?
Boom.
Anyways,
it was a Boom.
I've got his early Entropy Tales stuff, and I like to bring it out and just torment him. Yes, so I advise go out and buy a few copies, hide it, and let the fun begin.
Joe, what's the next book you read?
Unfortunately, this is all I will ever read of this particular book.
Oh, I thought you were all done reading.
No, well, no.
I will never read again.
Krista's home. She knows. I mean, I've got so many books and graphic novels around me, she'll just torch the room and call it an insurance loss. No, I have one called Young Terrorists. It's from a company that I do not believe exists anymore, Black Masks, because when I go to their website, blackmaskstudios.com, it is for sale. So apparently
never a good sign.
Never again. It's too bad, because this is a book I gabbed about a number of podcasts when I was reading through some old Free Comic Book Day stuff, getting ready for The Purge. This one caught my eye, and then when we went to Comic College, I ended up buying the 2 issues that they've published and will never publish again. It's actually taken as that. It's actually a pretty good story. It takes place, and of course, in a future that's probably not too far off, where the United States and the world is just fractured into different competing economic interests. And in the middle of this, a young lady's father is assassinated. She is taken in out of school as one of the prime suspects, because suddenly her locker miraculously is filled with explosives and guns. She ends up going to a prison where she has to fight, for the most part naked, to survive. And she basically, let's just say if you fight her, you are probably going to die, because she is very tough. But as the story goes on, then you meet another sad sack who apparently cannot keep his mouth or his bod out of line. For just shits and giggles, he decides to blow up an abandoned McDonald's. Well, they don't say it's a McDonald's, but, it's just like that. And he gets the attention of our previously seen naked fighter, and from there you discover they are off the grid, living a really anarchist type life, and the story goes through the 2 as they are working to take down the ones that have done them wrong. The 2 books that are out, and they're actually, they're kind of like square-bound graphic novels, $6.99, a lot of reading in there. And if you can find the 2, it's definitely worth reading. I'm disappointed that, at least for now, we will never see anything else, because this really feels like, okay, you've been introduced to the characters, they've gone through their first adventure, this is the status quo, and you'd like to see them continue. I am glad that the story is written the way it is, that, okay, fine, I will probably never see anymore, but, what we got is good. Nothing worse than, spending some money and buying a book only to discover, well, company went out of business and never quite finished the storyline. So if you can find some cheap copies, I mean, the 2 copies out, they only retail at $6.99. I imagine you might be able to find them for less on Amazon's, poking around comic stores, things like that. But definitely worth a read. It's one of those small press books that you're never going to probably find on your own without somebody as well-versed as I guiding you to them. Again, Young Terrorist, Black Mask, only 2 issues, and definitely worth seeking out.
The next book that I read was one of the ones by New Valiant. I've tried a couple books from the New Valiant in the past, and while they've been competent, I have no nostalgia for these characters, so they didn't grab me. I think I read like the first 3-4 issues of when they brought back what's Conan in the Iron Man suit?
Exo Man of War.
Exo Man of War. So I read that, and it was the same premise, told in an updated way, and after a few issues I went, I don't need to read this. It didn't grab me, but somebody said that I should give them another try, so I picked up one of their new first issues, Ninja K, which is probably the updated version of Ninjak. Written by Christos Gage, penciled by Diego Rodriguez and Tomas Guerrero. I don't have a lot of information on Ninjak, the original version, because by then I'd kind of dropped out of the Valiant thing. The books were a lot of people standing around talking all the time, and it's hard to get me interested in a bunch of people standing around talking all the time if they're supposed to be superheroes. The premise of the book is that before World War II, there was Ninja A, and then Ninja B, and so on and so on and so on until now we're at Ninja K.
Wow, what a concept. I wonder if it would work with weapons.
Well, that would mean that they've had 20-some weapons before Wolverine. Oh, wait, no, X was a number.
Ah. What?
Yeah, that was a Grant Morrison thing. Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I just finished reading that, but yeah, okay.
Anyway, the problem was there was a whole lot of setup. And it's a larger book. It's a 56-page book. But as I'm hitting about page 20, I'm going, oh my God, when are they going to be done with the setup and get to the story? And when a reader is starting to say that, you've lost them. Let's go back to Casefile Arkham. You got everything you needed to know in a few pages, and they had a lot more pages to work with. This book, it's set up and set up and set up and set up. Your first act can't be 2/3 of the book. So Ninja K or Ninjak, however they want you to pronounce it. Sorry, I keep giving Valiant a try, and they keep making it so I don't want to keep giving them money. Joe, your next book?
It is time to ask the Strode.
Ooh, I could win a shiny new dime.
Never see it coming. Here's the... Boy, Holly must have found it. There's less dimes in there this year.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Strode.
Yes.
In 1968, we discovered that Snoopy, Charlie Brown's dog, was not owned originally by Charlie Brown, who, in her one panel appearance in the entire run of Peanuts, is the little girl's name.
I do not remember. I do know that she owned him for a little bit from the Daisy Hill Puppy Farm.
Yep.
And then he was brought to Charlie Brown. I remember that story, but I don't remember her name.
Yeah, if you watch, she gets more airtime in the movie Snoopy Come Home. Well, okay, let's try another one. Cory, can you name Snoopy's 4 brothers and one sister?
I only remember Spike because I got so tired of Spike in the 80s.
Okay, one more try, Cory. Man, you're just letting me down here. What is the one sport that Charlie Brown was able to excel at, much to the surprise of Rerun and Lucy.
Wasn't it hockey?
Nope.
Or was it Snoopy was really good at hockey?
Oh, Snoopy was world famous in everything.
Yeah.
Even a grocery clerk. You know, there aren't too many world famous grocery clerks. You know.
There's Mark the Bagger, and that's about it.
There was a character in 1995, Joe Agate, that came and basically conned all the marbles out of Rerun, and this show upset Charlie Brown that he came back, and much to the awe, and to teach the bully a lesson, much to the awe of Rerun and Lucy, Charles Cool Thumb Brown stepped in and won back all of Rerun's marbles along with all of Joe Agate's owns in a most impressive display of marblese, even though in the early strips he didn't.
I don't remember that story. I'll have to read that one when I get up to that.
It sounds to me like you need to buy the complete Peanuts Family album, the ultimate guide to Charles M. Schulz classic characters. Text by Andrew Farrago, forward by Berkeley Breathed, and a preface by Bob Peterson.
Breathed.
Breckleth.
Yeah, he'll never make anything of himself.
Yeah, he's a bum. This was reviewed by Tony Isabella in one of his last posts last week, and I was so geamed to get it that I ran out and I picked it up. And this pretty much covers everybody who's ever had a name in the Peanuts. We talked about Leela. The brothers were Spike, Olaf, Andy, and Marbles, Belle being the sister. We talked about Joe Agate, but it covers, of course, not only the big people we know, like, Charlie Brown, Snoopy, covers players that were important in the past, because the first strip, okay, try this one, Mr. Strode. Who were the characters in the first Peanuts comic strip?
I know one of them was Violet.
Oh, Cory, you need this book. It was Patty.
Oh.
Violet showed up later. Shermie was there, and eventually Shermie disappeared. And what's nice is that all the characters that are covered, including 95472, the entire family, 3, 4, and 5, you see them dancing in the Peanuts Charlie Brown Christmas thing. That they were, Dad just got tired of names and decided to take the zip code, which was actually Charles Schulz's zip code, and he named all his kids by numbers. 3 and 4, of course, being nice feminine names. But this is it's a fun book covering all the characters. A lot of the characters I was not aware of are characters that occurred in the 80s and 90s, because even though I've got the Fangraphic wonderful reprint line of every single strip, I haven't gotten up to there. A few of the characters I remember, such as Molly Volley, who was a very foul-tempered person who in 77 played mixed doubles with Snoopy. And, of course, their opponents were Crybaby Booby, who just, no matter what happened, cried everything. It's not fair. It means we have to have sunrise. Why do we have sunrise? Blah, blah. And, of course, there was Bad Call Benny, who called every call bad. And between the two of them, I don't believe Snoopy and Molly Volley won. But it's quite a book. It covers all the characters. It's got a ton of artwork, some stuff never seen before, some stuff relatively new, such as the covers from the Boom Comics, a lot of model sheets, and it's just a fun, fascinating read. Coffee book size, published by where is it? Whedon Owen, and of course all you have to do is go complete Peanuts Family album, and I picked mine up off of Target.com because they seem to have one of the bestest price on the eBays. So no dimes for Cory this week, but a good recommendation to get him up and going on his Peanuts trivia.
The last book that I'm going to review is a hardcover that came out, and that is, let me get the name here because I want to get it right.
Why? I never do.
Tales of the Batman, Alan Brennert. Alan Brennert did not write a lot of comics, and he's probably better known, he probably made a lot more money writing for TV shows like LA Law. But he did write quite a few really good Batman stories, including Detective Comics number 500, Brave and the Bold 200. He did mostly Batman stories and Batman team-ups. And because he wrote for Brave and the Bold, a lot of his stuff was actually drawn by Jim Aparo. And Brennerit's stuff, a lot of the Brave and the Bold and other books like that have not held up, especially from, the 70s at DC. Brennert, because he wrote Outside Comics, his stuff holds up very well. He does the Last Hawk and Dove story before Crisis. He does a story where Batman and Robin go to an alternate Earth because 40 years ago was when Batman of Earth 2 was created. 20 years ago was when Batman of Earth 1 was created. So for the 500th issue of Detective, it's now a new Batman is about to be created. And the Phantom Stranger takes Batman and Robin to this world where Batman may be able to stop Joe Chill from killing his parents. It's a very, it's a nice big thick book. It's got all of the stuff that Brennert did, and it makes you wonder why he didn't do more. Oh, wait, no, TV paid a hell of a lot more. So, yeah, I know why he did more. But all of his stuff is good. He also did a Batman Elseworlds, one of the best Batman Elseworlds, and that's Batman Holy Terror. So, if you're looking for some Batman stories that you probably have not read, because most of them have not been collected in other volumes, the Alan Brennert book is well worth your reading, especially if you have not read a lot of the Jim Aparo art, because Aparo was, in a lot of ways, he was almost a definitive Batman artist in the 70s and 80s. He did Brave and the Bold, and then he switched over to Batman and the Outsiders, and then when Starlin started writing for Batman, he took over on Batman and did the Death in the Family story that is probably one of the most famous Batman stories ever written. So that's my last recommendation. Well worth your money. Joe, do you have another recommendation?
Oh my God, I think I'm getting a hernia. Oh, Cory, did you see the Infinity War trailer?
Yes.
Oh, wasn't that fun? I mean, that was a geekgasm of geekgasms. And I finally decided to crack open my Infinity Gauntlet Omnibus. And what can you say about that? I mean, it's probably one of the most fun stories Marvel's ever done. Again, my good buddy Jim Starlin doing the cosmic stuff. He does so well. And this is the whole story. It starts off, of course, Silver Surfer 34 to 38. He gets kind of waylaid by Thanos, where Thanos goes to the Thanos Quest, the book you and I have talked about ad nauseum, where no one bought it, but everybody wanted it once the Infinity Gauntlet 1 through 6 hit. And people realize that, hey, you know what? I think Thanos is the most powerful being in the bloody universe. It also covers Silver Surfer 44 through 60, but the other fun thing is that it brings in all the crossovers that it can. I don't know if there's any crossovers that it can't do. I don't know if it went into any licensing products, like we talk about Secret Wars, couldn't do the Micronauts or any of that stuff. But this, I just had to sit down and just read it. The copies of this are still pricey on the eBays, but as you know, our buddy at Comic College, he had them on the shelf at cover price. So if you were interested, look up Comic College of Comic Book Knowledge, give them a call and see if they might do some mail order for you and get yourself a cover price omnibus. Why they haven't announced that they're going to reprint this thing before Infinity War is beyond me. There were scenes, I watched some behind-the-scenes stuff of the creators talking about the movie, and one of the things they kept going on was their copy of Infinity Gauntlet Omnibus filled with Post-it notes and storyboards and ideas. So they are definitely using this as a basis for the movie. I even took it to work, which I usually don't like bringing my omnibus to work because they're so heavy. And, you know, I mean, granted, I can kill the mice that run around the airport with it. But you hate to get a nice book like that damaged, but this is just a lot of fun. If you've never read it, what are you? I don't know. Wait till after Infinity War, but I wouldn't. I'd go pick it up because, like I said, the Omnibus is great because it covers everything. It has the lead up to it, the main event, and then the story. Make sure you do the Omnibus because otherwise you'll be missing parts of the story. It's not necessarily needed, but I think there's a scene in there where when all the heroes are fighting Thanos and the Hulk, he makes super small, and then you deal with what happened with the Hulk and the Incredible Hulk, where it doesn't really play out in the rest of the Infinity Gauntlet. But I decided I treat myself a while back after the con, and I went down and bought one from Tim, and then when Cory and I were out again, we still got one on the shelf. So no guarantee it's been there now, but if you're definitely interested, tell them Joe and Cory sent you. Not going to help us any, but what the hell?
And maybe, just maybe, Marvel will wake up and reprint it for when the movie comes out.
These things have to be done, 6 months before they publish?
Yeah.
They
better hurry up.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe when we get our previews in a couple days.
Nope, it's not in that previews.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Never mind.
Well,
you know who does plan ahead?
Batman and Batcow?
Well, them
okay.
too, but...
Well, I got one more.
But these guys, our sponsors... That's right, here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, we have ads, and our first sponsor is me. That's right, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. I have my first book out with Dangerous Dan Moore. It's the first 100 strips of our online web strip, Worldwide News, the story of the lowest rated cable news network. And you can get yourself a copy with commentary, with all sorts of extras, with signatures and everything. Just email Dan over at lordshadowflame@gmail.com. Our top sponsor, who's been with us since day one, is DreamHost. DreamHost.com. You need yourself a website, and DreamHost.com is the #1 web host in the whole known universe. Just head over to DreamHost.com, put in the code KRAYZ, K-R-A-Y-Z, get $20 off your first year. How can you beat that? Our other sponsor is Graze, GRAZE.com. Healthy snacks for a healthy lifestyle. Just head over to Graze, put in the code CORYS3R5P. Your first and fifth box are free. You can get them weekly. You can get them bi-weekly. You can get them monthly. You can just order a whole bunch of them. It's great stuff to keep you away from the vending machine at work. Now, if you would like to leave a comment for any of the podcasts that we do, we'd love those. Go ahead and email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com, or you can call 952-856-0519. Operators are standing by. Okay, it's just a place that will record your calls, but we'll play them on the air. We'll answer your questions. We love getting feedback. Tell us what you think. Ask a question. Suggest a topic. Be a guest. Send us your stuff. solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. If you would like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose radio shows, you can. Just email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Subject advertising. Thanks. And after we finish up the sponsors, we've already talked about the other shows that we have here on the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. So we asked Joe, is it raining there yet?
Let me look outside. Too dark to tell.
Oh, because it was raining here, but now I think it's turning into snow. We started the day at 60 degrees. We're going to end the day at 15 degrees.
And we've got
here in beautiful Chaska.
Sweet bejesus. I just looked at the radar, and they got a weather advisory coming at us. And you're looking at where we are, and yeah, it's raining, and it's heavy. And then right after that, there's a little ice below us and a lot of snow after that. So
that's always fun when you get the rain that turns into snow, so that you got the nice little coating of ice on top of the road, and then you get a nice dusting of snow on top of it, so you get to practice your skiing while you're driving.
Yeah. Well, it's 42 right now, so everything's still rain for us. And like Cory said, it was 60 degrees. I went outside and I was like, holy moly, this is eerie. And it was a gray, dismal day, so it's like you're expecting something to hit. And we know it's coming. Well, it's here.
But no. The real question is, what's going on the eBays?
All right. Well, let's look at the last 5 things I sold.
Okay.
Last of
I'm
Us
looking.
American Dreams, number 4. That's from Dark Horse. That's, I believe, wasn't
Dark
it a
Horse?
video game? A video game or something?
What was it?
Last of Us.
Yes,
American
video game.
Dreams. Yeah, and what happened was when it first came out, nobody was paying attention. So you're talking like number 1 near mint is like $70, and I had Corey. Holly actually decided, when she decided to bail on comics, gave me all of her stuff, and I do have a few copies online, but number 4 sold, and you missed it. Spider-Man.
You blew it!
From 1995 during the Marvel DC crossover era. Not a bad book. I had the cheapest one on eBay. Sold. Corey, you remember Everett Hartsoul's Razor?
Yes.
Yep. It was basically, well, I guess you could call it kind of the bad girl craze. Got a lot of series out of it, a lot of different variant covers, some nude, some other ones, and some blood red velvet variants. Ooh.
Blood.
Nothing like having
the blood.
Razor number 50. Sold that baby. And we've talked before about Count Duckula. Marvel did a miniseries. Well, it wasn't a miniseries. They did 12 issues anyways. Back in 1989. Danger Mouse was in it. Number 12 sold. That one went all the way to Europe. And Sam and Max Freelance Police Special number 1 from 1989. Finally sold my 1 copy of that.
Love that book so much.
I'm surprised nothing's come of it. I did sell a big...
Well, other than a bunch of video games and cartoons.
I mean, currently. Come on, Steve.
They just put out a video game a few years ago.
It's almost 2018. Let's get something going. Such as the Big Bang Theory Amy Farrah Fowler figure. Sold that baby right away. Now, let's do something different. Let's look at the... I was going to say, talk about Archie comics, because of all the comics I've ever seen at comic shops and that, any store that has Archie comics tends to sell them fast because not a lot of places have them. And I had a whole run of Archie comics, before they rebooted. A lot of variant covers from 2013, some of the different ones from 2012. The back when, why can't I think of the bass player in Josie and the Pussycats? Valerie?
Yes.
When her and Archie became an item. I had all these stuff on eBays. I was all going to talk about it, and then one astute buyer swooped down, grabbed them all, and they're gone. Especially if you can find earlier Archies in the 70s and 60s in really mint shape. Those are books to behold, because one of my old comic shops, John Nunziata at St. Paul Comic, he just said, "You'll never guess what I sold today. I sold 150 different Archies because nobody carries them and nobody has them in good shape." That's just the way the old comic book crumbled. So instead of looking at that, let's look at the last 5 things I put on eBay, and these are things that you have a chance to get. I have the Lone Ranger, Death of Zorro, black and white Alex Ross variant cover. That series was actually pretty fun. The whole Lone Ranger run from Dynamite was good, and this one dealt with the death of the old Zorro. And of course, needless to say, if there's any family members of Zorro, they probably won't take it sitting down very well. I put on the Clive Barker's Hellraiser 2013 annual from Boom. Another crazy series. I mean, the first couple ones are really good, and then they kind of, like any you're talking the horror earlier, they went and they explained a little too much and kind of took some of the fun out of it. It almost became a parody of itself. But the comics, they still were in the same vein. Not all my Archies are gone. I got Betty and Veronica, number 269, the Rosie the Riveter variant cover from 2013. If you're a Deadpool fan, Deadpool Annual number 1 from 2014, which featured Madcap, if you remember that character. We've talked about CrossGen, and one of the things CrossGen did in 2000 is they sent my store what they call preview copies, which were basically the full comic and blazed across the top where advanced copy only, tell your retailer to order it. So you could actually look at a copy of it before I had to order it. One of the things CrossGen did that was real interesting is they actually went to retailers. In this case, our aforementioned Dan Wiesemeyer went to a CrossGen summit, and they talked to the retailers about how can we help to sell our comics better. One of the suggestions was, get copies of the comic to us before we sell it. And so they did that. Some of these preview copies are harder to find. I actually have a set on eBay, so you can go check it out if you want to get it. And those are 5 of the last things I put on eBay. If you're interested, check it out. Crazy, K-R-A-Y-Z. Go back, listen to the ads. You'll get the direct website before net neutrality goes away to get to it, so you don't have to pay more to get there. And if you do buy something, let me know. Send me a quick note via eBay's store service on my own email at crazycomics@gmail.com. And I will take something from the rest, the accumulation of my stuff, crap, and maybe I'll toss in a freebie for you. It could be maybe Dark Tower #1, could be Knights of Pendragon #6, maybe Anna Mercury #4. You just don't know what you'll get, but it could be fun. And as usual, thank you for shopping my eBay.
Well, and now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where we discuss hats for 30 minutes. It's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Oh, Pat Broderick's back on the shit list. I guess he's never going to cough up my commission. Rat bastard. I need his address. I'll just send him my last bottle of Rat Bastard Ripper. You say, you rat bastard, you got $800 of my money, and your fucking excuse after excuse won't cough up a goddamn commission that you said would be given to me at the last FallCon. And I don't know what to do. He's not even reading my emails anymore. So. As you might have heard, I was losing track of my mute while I was trying to cough quietly, and I think I coughed so much I lost track when I was actually muting myself. So if I was coughing over Cory, I do apologize for that. But I'm at the tail end of a cold. I'm like, yesterday, I'm like, oh, I feel good. It's going away. This morning I wake up, oh, throat sore. I'm hawking up giant green gobulets, and they just don't go away. So, let's see. By this time next week, we will know if one of my freakings is that the government has shut down again, or if they decided not to go that particular route. So I got that to look forward to right before Christmas, which is nice. This week is kind of weird, too, because, as you know, my box day is coming, and I won't be here to receive it. Instead, I have TSA training. What's TSA training? Well, it's like this. Hey, Joe, you want to be trained on this piece of equipment? No, not really. Next day, Joe, you're going to training next week. Oh. So that's pretty much it. The only real plus side is the training's like 8:30 to 4:30, so I will actually get home at night, which is, I guess, okay. But, oh, well. That's my freaking. Cory, what you freaking on?
The first thing I'm freaking on is there have been quite a few people on Facebook, a number of artists from the Bronze Age who have not been to Minneapolis before. And they're saying, hey, I'm starting to put together my con list for 2018. If you would like me to be at your convention, go ahead and let me know. And there were a few artists, I'm not going to name names, who I pointed out to one of the 3 people in charge of the convention, again, I'm not going to name names, who are just looking to show up at conventions. I wouldn't say they're huge names, but they're people who haven't been to the convention. They worked in comics for a long time. I was informed that the convention is not interested in any of them.
Wow.
So, kind of freaking about that, hey, here are these guests we've never had before.
Did they say who they are interested in?
No.
Yeah. See, this is something that I'm going to add to your freaking. I talked about this with Jack Kirby, where one guy at the con, because he had a bad experience with Jack Kirby, talked everybody else out of inviting him to the con. And so what happened now is you just have the main guy who's running the guest is an art collector. So he only wants people that he can buy art from. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it until I hear otherwise. But yeah, again, I don't know.
Joe has training coming up. I have my my first HR test coming up. I have been studying for this test since about August, and I will be taking it on the last Friday of the month, and now that it's within a month, I'm kind of freaking out a little bit. Because this is for me to get certified. I need to pass 3 of these tests in order to be certified, and if I get certified, not only do I get a nice little raise at my full-time job, but it also means that if I ever do have to go back out on the job hunt market again, I have certification and access to not just access to a nationwide job site that only people who are certified can get to, but it also kind of puts you in the front of the line, and other companies will pay more for somebody who's certified in HR benefits than they do for somebody who's not. So kind of the clock is starting to tick. So the next 3 weekends, I'm going to be taking practice tests and seeing what I need to study further on. And then the last thing I'm freaking on, we talked a couple weeks ago about C.B. Cebulski being put in charge of Marvel. And then about a week ago, it came out that he was using a pen name, Akira Yoshida, in the early 2000s, while writing miniseries that were based in Japan. And before he was named as editor-in-chief, he went to the big high muckety-mucks at Marvel and told them, hey, I've got this in my past. But now that it's come out, it's funny how a lot of comic professionals are like, oh, well, that sort of thing happens. The older a professional it is, the more like, oh, yeah, we used pen names all the time. But people outside the comics, and you know who you are, have now gone, oh, you see, he wasn't able to get a job as a writer till he used a Japanese name because comic companies are bigoted against white people.
All I could think of is, were the stories any good?
Yeah, they were okay.
I don't recall reading them.
And all I have to say is, really, 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 really. I'm just sick of it. I'm just sick of these fans who think that they know more about the business, who have decided to sit in judgment of all of this. You're fans, okay? And just because you have a YouTube channel doesn't mean you know anything. All right?
Yeah, if you were really smart, you'd have a podcast like us.
Damn right. And you'd become a national treasure, like us. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Nothing. Cory, what are you geeking on? Yeah, seriously. I talked about everything I've read. I haven't watched any TV. Box day ain't till Wednesday, and even when that comes, I probably won't get a chance to really look at it until after next week's podcast. Or if the government shuts down, I'll have plenty of time. So, nothing. What are you geeking on?
Wait. Aren't you essential personnel? You just work and get paid later?
Shut up.
So, first thing I'm geeking on, when we did our geeking, I went to comic shops and they didn't have the comic boxes I wanted. So, my comic room, I've got a lot of trade paperbacks and stuff that are in the printer paper boxes. And I'm done with that because they're impossible to move. They're too heavy. They fall apart. I want to get short boxes for the trade paperbacks and stuff that don't need to be on shelves. So I was looking around online. Joe, I was able to get 10 of those for $45 on Amazon, delivered in 2 days.
Nice.
So you comic shops that either A, don't carry them, or B, are selling those boxes for $7.50 each, guess what? People can use the Google. The second thing I am geeking on, I had Saturday evening free, and I was looking to see, because I have Amazon Prime, that's how I was able to get the comic boxes in 2 days. I have Amazon Prime, and we hear very little about the series that Amazon Prime is doing. And I think it's mostly because people just buy the Amazon Prime for the free 2-day shipping. But there is a new series that they dropped called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. and it is set in the 50s, and it's about a woman who is on top of the world. She has the perfect marriage, the perfect life. Everything is working great for her. She's kind of the master of her little domain. And her husband is a vice president in a company, and in the evenings he wants to be a comedian. Now this is in the 50s, so they go to a spoken word open mic thing where people read poetry and they hang out with beatniks and they listen to folk music, pre-hippies. Well, something happens, her life falls apart, and she ends up on the stage and learns that she wants to do comedy. It is very funny. It is very smart. It's written by the same writer who wrote Gilmore Girls, so everybody talks really, really fast because they have a whole lot of dialogue. And I watched the first 2 episodes, and if I didn't have to work the next morning, I would have watched all 8. I'm in love with the show. It's smart. It's funny. It's got Lenny Bruce in it. So big thumbs up for me. And then the last comic thing, again, like Joe, I reviewed a lot of comics, but I got my little note from Fantagraphics, hey, here's what's coming out. And Joe, about a year ago, I started on my crusade of, damn it, we need reprints of the kind of the seminal underground comic stuff.
Yes.
And
that don't cost $100 a box.
Yeah, Fantagraphics seems to have heard me because they're coming. This month came the Spain trade paperback where they reprint the Trash Man stories. And the one they're soliciting now are Tales of the Leather Nun, which is another of those seminal underground books from the late 60s, early 70s that I've never read. So I'm excited about getting that one too. And I really hope Fantagraphics kind of starts doing that where, here's a trade paperback. I'd like to see a trade paperback of Wonder Warthog. I know that they've done a few reprints of Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. I got the 2 volumes that they did back in the late 90s. And this stuff, it's of its time, but I still think it's important to have because for all the talk about comics in the 60s and 70s, the undergrounds really were kind of the first step toward making comics for adults again. And I think a lot of the artists have faded away because the whole underground scene just kind of died. You had R. Crumb, who broke out, and then Art Spiegelman, who one of these days I'll have a really strong freaking on, with Mouse. What's he done since Mouse? Oh, a whole lot of nothing. But I think it's good that we get these undergrounds in print, not just for the historical, but for the fact that this was art that I think even people at the time didn't quite grasp how important it was. So looking forward to that, and I hope they eventually reprint, what was it, Binky Brown and the Holy Mother Mary? I think that was the name of it. Another one of those undergrounds that I heard about over and over and over, but have never gotten to read. And that's what I'm freaking about this week. Joe, we got a special guest next week.
You were geeking or freaking on that last one?
I don't know. Freaking.
You use them interchangeable, yeah.
We have a special guest next week, Joe.
Well, I'm always here. I mean, I like being special, but if I could be a guest, if it's extra money, I'll do it.
No. We have a special guest next week.
Is your sister coming?
Nope.
Oh.
Our buddy Angel Medina is going to be dropping by.
If you like Angel Medina, he's going to be on our podcast. It's one you want to download. It's one that's going to last.
And the week after that. Yes, that's right. The week after that. What? Huh? We don't take a break.
No, I take a break.
Why would you take a break?
Well, I'm not hanging around for Festivus. There's too much negativity going on in the world.
Festivus is our annual holiday show. You must be there for Festivus. We will have special guests.
I don't. Well, shit, if he's going to bring in guests.
Just so please wear pants.
No guarantees.
But so if you've got your Festivus grievances, go ahead and send them to us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. We want your grievances. We will read them on the air. And then the episode after that, to make up for it, because Joe gets all whiny and pouty about my holiday.
Pretty much.
We will then do what we are looking forward to in the coming year. What do we want to see in 2018? Other than Joe wearing pants.
No.
So we got a whole bunch of special goodness coming up this year. And the year's almost up. So as we say every week, Joe, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
All right, one more chance, Mr. Strode.
Okay.
There is only one cartoonist that contributed to one of Schultz's daily comic strip in 1998, Veterans Day installment of Peanuts, depicts Snoopy meeting his heroes, Willie and Joel. Illustrated by who?
Maudlin.
Very good. A shiny new dime to Cory. Bill Maudlin. So every year, most of the time, Snoopy always talks about going over to Bill Maudlin's house to quaff a few root beers. That day in 1998, 11/11/98, you actually see Snoopy walking in the trenches, and Willie Joe look over and they see Snoopy. I think the new replacements are getting smaller all the time, and Snoopy's thinking, Willie and Joe, my heroes, happy Veterans Day, men. The only time Schultz had somebody contribute to his comic strip.
Joe, I'm going to ask, does Joe know?
No.
Only one artist contributed to the Peanuts, the complete Peanuts, who did not draw any of the strips. Who was it?
I want to say Frazetta.
Nope.
Just because that's the only name I can think of off the top of my head. He did Little Abner.
Nope, it was Joe, Matt, and Seth.
Oh!
One of their drawings is in the final book. So, Joe does not get a shiny new dime.
No dimes for Joe.
Sorry,
Well,
Joe.
there's only one thing to do. Hit my music.